What's the worst houseguest experience you've had?
Some family friends came over with their 30-year-old son unannounced, took a nap on our sofa like full-on shoes off, made us turn off the TVBC, it was too loud. Then Venmo charged us for snacks they brought even though we didn't ask for anything. I literally felt like I was the one who was visiting.
They charged you for snacks they brought? Please tell me you didn't pay. Holy hell.
My dad's friend pissed in the corner of the guest room and asked for money from everyone who happened to walk by him.
In that order?
No, simultaneously and with direct eye contact the entire time.
She stole all of my booze, pissed on my couch, tore up the flower bed to the side of my driveway, and destroyed my guest bathroom. This all happened after I'd fallen asleep. She was a guest of a tenant, roommate, and that roommate was told either her friend wasn't allowed over ever again or she'd have to find a new place to live.
Literally thought this was going to be about a dog.
My dogs are way more behaved than that walking disaster area.
One of my best buddies from high school called me up and begged for me to come get him from a town about 3 hours away. The idea was he would stay with us for a couple weeks while he looked for work and then get his own place. 6 months later I ended up renting him a room for 1 month and dropping him off with his junk and wishing him well. His father had warned me he would drain me dry, and he wasn't kidding. All those months he was supposedly using my vehicle to look for work, he was instead going out to a local bar. Every bottle in our liquor cabinet was drained down to the last finger.
Yeah, cause if you leave that last little dribble in the bottle you haven't officially taken the piss.
Couple came for a weekend to my small apartment, surprised that they brought 3 dogs and an extra friend. The puppy took a dump on my floor in the night, which nobody got up to clean. Another dog had a crate but managed to get a hold of a carpet outside of the crate, drag it in, and shred it. They also chewed up cardboard and wooden furniture. When they left, all the shredded stuff was just where it fell.
Some people should not be pet owners.
My mum's cousin and her husband went for a short visit to our house. She was 5 months pregnant then. She and her husband didn't leave until the baby was 2 months old.
Them when leaving. It's a pity we could only pay you a short visit. We'd have loved to stay a bit more. But Jimmy's starting college tomorrow.
Instead of asking where the toilet paper is, they let their kid wipe his ass with our guest towels.
Was there extra toilet paper in the bathroom, or were they too lazy to look?
They were overnight guests. There were definitely more rolls. They just didn't look around. _O_. A former friend of ours called us and said that her house caught on fire, so naturally we offered a soft place to land while she was dealing with the fallout. So we went and picked her up, brought her home, and got her set up for the night. The next day, she grabbed what she could from her apartment and brought it over to our house. My wife washed all of her clothes, which by the way smelled the way you'd expect from being in a house fire. Unfortunately, that scent is really hard to get out, so our house smelled of fire for a long time as my wife was washing the clothes multiple times. Eventually, we realized she was not trying at all to get her life back in order. She also wasn't helping at all at our house, with getting her things together. She apparently just decided that she was going to just stay with us and coast, I guess? Ultimately she then started being really critical of anything we did, tried to start drama, and was generally unpleasant to be around. What finally broke the camel's back was that I returned one day to find her and someone we had never met before smoking in our front porch. Not really a big deal, but it was odd that she didn't let us know that she was inviting anyone into our house. The next day I went to take my Adderall that I had just filled and noticed that there were like 5 left from the prescription. Her and her friend helped themselves to my meds. After that she announced that she was going to stay somewhere, that she was welcome, and that we could throw the clothes and items away that we had at our house because she didn't want them anymore because they smelled too much like smoke. The best came after she moved out. We read a story about the fire in the newspaper about the cause of the fire. She had caused it by smoking on the back deck of her apartment by carelessly not putting the cigarette out. We never really saw her again. She tried to make contact but we just noped it out. She ended up moving in with some of our other friends, which we tried to warn them about, and ended up almost accidentally killing their dog due to carelessness before being kicked out by them. Yeah, she sucked.
Just FYI, putting vinegar in the washing machine with any clothing or bedding will take basically any smell out of them. Including the smell of a house fire. I can vouch from personal experience.
Oh nice. Thank you for the tip. I will try that. My ex-wife's friend had her car break down, and our apartment was right on a bus route to her job. She was supposed to stay over for a week while she got her car fixed. After 2 months and a lot of warning, We packed her bags for her and put them by the door.
How long did she crash on the porch?
Wife's cousin stayed a couple days with us. After he left, I discovered he purchased about $60 worth of pee on DirecTV.
Who are these monsters who pay for pee? Especially on TV, let alone someone's other than theirs. Just jerking it in the living room in the afternoon while everyone pretends the world isn't burning down around them.
He crashed on our couch and this was overnight. My parents came over and started snooping through my closet while I was making tea. They found some sex toys and proceeded to get mad at me for having them. In my own house, in my own bedroom, they wouldn't have found them if they would have behaved like normal people.
Hey, my dad did this to me. Asked to use my laptop to do his taxes while he was visiting. No issues there. Found some pee I had on the hard drive from the old laptop from about 10 years ago and proceeds to chew me out about it. Normal naughty nurses type stuff buried in a labyrinth of new folder that to brute force hack, he'd need to open something like 12,000 folders. I doubt he did his taxes at all.
It's such a violation of privacy, it's disgusting.
My uncle and his wife came to stay for a while. They got my room and I slept on the couch for a few months, NBD when you're a kid I guess. What actually ticked me off is that when they finally left we found out that they'd seriously messed up my room. Everything reeked of cigarettes, there were ground up peanut shells in the carpet, cigarette burns on my mattress, etc. And we couldn't figure out why the room smelled like death until we lifted up the bed and found mummified cat poo stuck up in the shag carpeting. They either had such bad hygiene that they didn't notice the smell or they knew and they just didn't care. Edit to everyone asking how we didn't notice the cigarette smell, my guess is that they only smoked in the room during the day when everyone was out, probably smoked out the window. My parents weren't smokers, we just figured the smell was coming from their bodies which we couldn't do anything about.
Ugh, I had ex-friends crash in my spare room for a bit to get on their feet. Left the room absolutely nasty, but the worst thing was finding a dried cat turd mashed in the carpet under a bookshelf. Thing is, it would have been physically impossible for the cat to get under the shelf to poop there, which means they found a mess from their animal and just put my bookshelf on top of it rather than clean it up.
My aunt came to visit for what was supposed to be a week or two and didn't leave for almost a year when I was a kid. She redecorated my room and even put up pictures of herself. Now the running joke in my family is to randomly leave pictures of yourself around the house when we visit people.
LMAO, that's so funny. Reminds me of a guy the first used to work with who used to take pictures of himself and his family to IKEA. Over a long while he put them in the frames in all the displays. Nearly pissed myself when I went one day and spotted a pic of him on a beach somewhere in a bedroom display.
My old roommate told me she had a friend who had fallen on rough times and needed a spot to crash for a while. No worries, I told her. Ooh, big worries. He was a professional beatboxer, but more than that he was a professional smoker. Like, I'm fine with WD generally, but this dude was on 12 to 15 blunts a day, and would roll one as soon as he rolled his tighty-whitey clad ass off of our couch. So for like 4 months, as soon as I woke up, it was nothing but clouds of white owl and BRRRMMMCHKCHKFRKAFRKACHCKABRRRMMM. He didn't fall on rough times. He was a rough time.
My friend asked if her brother, who I'd never met, could crash on my couch for the night. Her boyfriend wouldn't let him stay with them. My roommate and I agreed, just for the night. Then the next night, he got in a fight with the person he was supposed to stay with, and had to crash on my couch again. Stuff like that kept happening. Then he just stopped trying to find somewhere else to stay and started taking our spare key, staying out till I went to bed, and then coming in and crashing on the couch. His phone was off so I could never reach him when he was out unless he was connected to Wi-Fi. He got a job at a tattoo parlor and would brag about how much money he made, but never contributed or saved the money to move out. He blew it all on WD. I seriously don't know how someone could spend that much on WD. He was there for almost 2 months before he lied and snuck in a girl he'd met in rehab who had felony arrest warrants out for her. I said I didn't want her in the apt, and I caught them sneaking out the next morning 5 minutes before my alarm was to go off. I got upset with him and said it was not okay to lie to me and hide things from me. He freaked out and made up a bunch of stuff that he told my roommate and my friend, his sister, said I called him a useless junkie, etc. I've had a lot of friends struggle with addiction. I'd never ever say something like that. After having my roommate scream at me over the lies the guy told, I was done. He wasn't allowed back. It was a good thing I made him leave. Turns out he was slipping back into old habits. The next person who let him stay with them got robbed. He's been in and out of jail. My friend asked if I could help put money on his commissary thing. I hope the guy eventually gets cleaned up, but it's not my mess.
My dad owned a business his whole life and was in the process of hiring new installers. One applicant came in from out of town and my dad, being the kind man he was, offered for him to stay in our home. When the morning came, the man went to take a shower. My parents heard the water turn on and it stayed on for a really long time. After an hour and a half of running water, my mom made my dad go check on him. My dad went upstairs, picked the lock on the bathroom door, and found blood and a limp body on the floor next to the running shower. The man had overdosed, lost consciousness, hit his head on the shower side, and died. He was dead, right there on the bathroom floor that I used for 10 years. One thing is for sure, he won't be coming back to our house again.
Moral of the story, always do DG sitting down.
That would be the girl visiting my sister-in-law who decided it would be funny to repeatedly prank call 911. I got a very angry call from the local police station saying we either stopped or they'd be sending a squad car over. Apologized profusely to the officer and thanked him for calling us first. She was not invited back to her house. She was 17 and definitely old enough to know better.
Isn't abuse of 911 an actual crime?
I offered someone a ride home from class in college, was hoping to make a new friend. This guy proceeded to take his shoes off, and put his smelly socks on my leather dashboard, then critique my driving and tell me why manual transmissions are stupid. Murder would have been justified if he was a house guest.
I would have slammed on the brakes to make him fold in half. Who the hell has a strong opinion on manual versus automatic transmissions? Also, keep your dirty ass feet off my leather dash. Edit. Looks like someone really nice gave me a gold. Thank you, kind stranger. Less than 3.
Sister-in-law house sat when we were out of town. There were tons of disrespectful presents left for us, a cookie crumb trail of condom wrappers, which lead to an actual used condom, like WTF? But the worst was after cleaning all that up, which was just aggravating and stupid, there was a putrid smell I couldn't put my finger on. Until I finally opened a drawer in the dresser in the guest room. She had left a takeout container in there, half an omelette that had gone rancid. I gotta hope she just had to go quick and forgot all that crap was there when she left. Either way, we took our key back from her.
It's so interesting to see some people's habits. Yikes.
Housemate had people come over, order a pizza, decide they didn't want it and refuse to answer the door so they didn't have to pay, at 4 a.m. Pizza guy could hear them through the door so kept knocking louder and louder. I eventually went to the door and opened it, then explained to the pizza guy what was going on, so that they didn't blacklist the property, and forced them to pay. As they were packing to leave the next day, I noticed them trying to take some of my extra PS4 controllers by sneaking them into their bag. I'm normally an introvert, but already being cranky from no sleep, I lost my poo at that point. Called them a disgusting thief and told them to GTFO.
Controllers are expensive if those hoes.
I had surgery and was on bed rest for a week. I asked my cousin, who was living with me at the time, to keep an eye on me, as I was on heavy painkillers. I stayed on the couch and let her use my bedroom. When I recovered, I found used hair weave piled up on clean towels in the bathroom cabinet, a douche nozzle behind my nightstand, trash piled all the way up the wall in the kitchen, dirty dishes everywhere, a plate of rancid food in the microwave, ketchup and mustard smeared on the floors, and she had stolen a bunch of clothing and CDs, along with one of my iPhone chargers. She had a Windows phone, and she poked a hole in my $2,500 sleep number bed. I kicked her ass out immediately. Edit. Why I gave her the bed and took the couch. The couch was like 2 steps from the bathroom, and by giving her the bedroom I thought I was ensuring that she would have no reason not to do this one simple task, because she would have to pass by the couch to go to the kitchen or the bathroom. Edit. Explain douche nozzle. A douche is a feminine hygiene product that many women use to control vagal odor. The bag contains the product, and the nozzle is inserted into the vag. When you squeeze the bag, the product is pushed out of the nozzle and it rinses the vag. Edit. I have seen a handful of comments saying that you're supposed to douche your butt. Are you using actual douches, or warm water enemas? Because douches typically contain vinegar and that's unsafe for rectal use.
I don't understand how a family member of someone thinks what they're doing is fine. Have you had any contact with them since?
Nope. I ran into her in line at the grocery store last year. She spoke to me and I went to stand in another line.
A friend I haven't seen in a year or so called me last weekend wanting to catch up, so he came over. I didn't realize he was blackout drunk until he walked in, and I didn't realize how to defuse the situation. It started with him taking a poo in my bathroom, and instead of flushing it he just put both seats down. Went into my fridge to grab a craft IPA that I have been saving for a rainy day and drank it. Went outside and out of nowhere he starting saying the N-word? He's never been racist as far as I know. At this point I told him to get the F out nicely or calm down, but I also didn't want him to crash his car home as he lives an hour away. He then said he's going to go get cigarettes, so I offered to drive him. As soon as we're down the road he yells at me to pull over because he has to pee. Again calling me the N-word for no apparent reason. I told him to just wait 3 minutes, and he takes out his DK and puts it into his beer can and just pees everywhere and then throws it outside. By this time I'm livid and he grabs my arm to apologize, but his hand was soaked in piss, so he basically just wiped it all over me. I knew I was going to punch him in the face if I didn't get to the gas station, so once I got there I told him to go inside. When he went in I peeled out of there and called his GF saying she needed to pick him up from that gas station. I took a shower and an hour later his GF calls me and says he's in the backseat of a cop car because he called 911 asking for cocaine. Needless to say, that's the last time I'll be seeing him.
He called 911 asking for cocaine. WTF? How absolutely drunk do you have to be to do something so incredibly stupid? Edit. To save future commentators time. I know that the police have cocaine in their evidence room.
I couldn't make this poo up, lol.
I was on my honeymoon with my husband and we let his dad stay at our house, but said he had to be out by the time we got back. We let him know when we were on our way home and expected him to be gone. We get back, he was gone but had not gotten his stuff out of the house. On top of that, he trashed the place like a group of teenagers, empty pizza boxes and trash laying around. He came back and stayed around for a bit and asked me if I was mad at him. Like, of course I'm mad. What do you expect?
Bye. Are you mad at me? I assume you mean to apologize for your behavior. So how about we try that again?
Ran into a guy that first used to call a friend and let him stay with me for a while as he was down on his luck. I guess we'd ran out of toilet paper, so he used a washcloth and left it at the side of the toilet. Kicked him out and found out later he walked away with some of my CDs. Some mutual friends let him stay. Against my advice, they came home one day to find him passed out on the couch with his pants around his ankles. After they kicked him out, they found out he'd racked up $900 in phone sex charges. F you Noel. You always were and always will be a piece of poo.
Noel, that guy was doomed from the start.
Never even got to spend any time in this apartment. I agreed to rent an apartment with my younger sister on her road to recovery from D-use, and we'd all thought she was doing well. I paid for the first month's rent and deposit, which is standard. She moved in a week early, because I was working night shift and the whole process started on a Monday. That weekend I got to move in, I found out my debit card was locked out because she stole it and attempted to withdraw money too many times. It didn't get any better after that, sadly. Was not expecting that reaction. For all who are curious, yeah, poo got worse and I've further distanced myself from that sibling, especially seeing her OD and nearly die and treat us like poo for calling medics. And no, I'm not going to give a lot of little detail here because she is still my little sister. So even inventing here and never wanting to deal with her bullpoo again, I'm not going to do that.
Oh, this is a pretty good one. So I had a really old, good friend call me and tell me they needed a place to stay for maybe a few days or a week when I lived in the Pacific Northwest. I of course said yes. Then she told me her girlfriend was coming too. Okay, great. They show up, and when they get to my porch she tells me her girlfriend has strep throat. At first I think, okay, whatever. But then I stop and think, isn't that highly contagious? But they are already here. So I just kind of start thinking to myself that I'll have to somehow keep them to my spare bedroom and sterilize the crap out of everything. But then I'm just wondering why my friend didn't tell me in advance, or if they don't know how contagious it is. Like if my girlfriend had strep, I'd go get a hotel and not subject my friend to that. After about a day, my friend tells me via text she has to leave. Which at first I'm relieved, but then she asks if her girlfriend can just stay at my place. I don't know her, I've never met her in my life. I tell her I have another couple that need to come stay with me, which was true, and that I'm not comfortable housing someone I don't know who is sick. She says that is fine, but then when she comes to get her stuff she acts all pissed and says, well, see you sometime, maybe. And I don't hear from her for a long time after. Kinda fed up she put me in that situation tbh.
Yeah, see, that's not a friend. That's a former friend masquerading as a friend.
Well, this one happened a few years ago. But the husband of my great-aunt came to visit us. Mind you, he was like 80-something years old. So he goes to the bathroom to do his bussiness, and he comes down. Now he smells a little bit, but we all brush it aside. Then when he sits down and after a while gets back up to leave, you can see poo stains on the sofa. Not only that, but my mom then goes upstairs and finds the bathroom full of poo. Not full-on poo, but a bunch of it was sprayed in the walls, etc. To this day we haven't spoken about it, and that man passed away around a year ago.
Greater than, to this day we haven't spoken about it, and that man passed away around a year ago. I think it is past time to talk about it. If it can't be funny now, it'll never be funny.
My brother Todd is a AD addict and an alcoholic. Before Mum and Dad finally had enough and got a restraining order, they kept thinking that if they kept him at home he'd get sober. He would wander the streets and bring home homeless people who were also strung out in the middle of the night. One time it was this woman who used our bathroom, taking a shower and leaving an absolute mess, including her soiled thong on the bathroom floor. She also stole some stuff. We didn't know about her until the morning when she left my brother's room because despite being high as a kite she was quiet. And for once my brother, despite being high himself, remembered the alarm code. Which was unusual because he normally forgets it when he's high, drunk. Most of the time we'd catch him bringing home strange women and men to sleep in his room because the alarm would go off and wake us all up. Every time Dad would throw them both out and change the garage door code for the night so he couldn't get back in. Another time one of my mum's now former friends came over in a rage, forcing her way in. She had been at urgent care and got tired of waiting. She had a bladder infection that was so bad she was bleeding. She left the bathroom a bloody mess and screamed at Mum the entire time before finally leaving. Mum cut her out of her life after that.
In a rage? Hey, my pisshole is bleeding and I want to soil your bathroom. Let me in right now so I can leave a slimy trail from your porch.
He cranked my dad's speakers up to the max and blew them. They were from the 70s, so impossible to replace or repair. Then he clogged our toilet, grabbed a bunch of grandma's quilts to sop up the water. He then tried to stop the water by violently shacking the tank, cracking the bowl and dislodging it from its base. In a panic he tried to bolt from the house. His wet feet slipped on the wood floor and he crashed into a wall, leaving a nice body-sized impression. That's how my brother's friends was barred from the house.
This reminds me of an ex-friend of mine. Our toilet has clogged up and I had just finished mopping and cleaning up the pooty mess. He comes over and I'm like, don't use the toilet, it's stuck and will overflow. I go out to have a cigarette and my nephew runs to me and tells me my friend just flushed the toilet and water is overflowing again. I rush in too fast, slip and fall flat on my face. I ask him later why did he flush when I told him not to. He said, I wanted to check if you were serious. Didn't talk to him for weeks after that, but never let him live it down either.
Nor should he ever have a moment's reprise from it.
A high school buddy of mine called to ask if his late teens daughter and her two friends could stay at our house for a night, as they were traveling around the world. Of course, and we even gave them our master bedroom, and master bath, so they could clean up, and spoil themselves. Not to brag, but we have a kick-ass setup. Those two rooms are about 700 square feet. Shortly after seeing their new digs, they announced that they were staying for 6 days, actually assuming we'd let them have our room the entire time. We said, no. One night of fun, then down to the basement, which is still pretty nice. They left the next morning when we're out, didn't say thank you, took a bunch of snack food, and made us sound like horrible hosts to my buddy. The entitlement was laughable.
My father-in-law threatened to beat my 6-year-old sister because she was running around in our porch.
When I was a toddler, my grandfather slammed my head into the washer, dryer because I was in his way. Some of our relatives apparently tried to defend him. My parents went apepoo and left.
I was 23, just signed a lease for a duplex with my girlfriend. Got new furniture and a new computer, then my brother shows up one with a broken foot and says he can't work, so he stays with me while he acts grateful, and I had a spare bedroom that was using as an office. My new computer was in the room. He downloaded so much P it crashed the hard drive. Had to wipe the hard drive and reinstall Windows. I put a parental block on the computer after that. He finally got a job and pretty much spent all his money on DG. I would ask him to pitch in money for food, bills, and would be totally delusional, saying he gave $500 last week. I think I got $100 from him in the 6 months he was there. He got fed up on pills and passes out and pissed himself on my brand new couch. Then tried to fight me when I yelled at him and said he had to pay for it to get cleaned. I told him to get out at that point, then it was a nightmare. He would send threatening messages to me saying how he was going to kill me. Cops got called. Cops took some statements, wrote down the text messages, and didn't do crap at the time. 3 months later they arrest him and our mom calls me saying it's all my fault and I need to drop the charges. Needless to say, I'm not real close with my family these days. Oh yeah, I had a bed in the office that totally covered in piss after he stayed there. Also found a duffel bag full of pee in the room and a few dozen little baggies with coke residue in them.
Husband of friend came for Xmas since she was out of town. He brought the dog, who had diarrhea. Dog humped our dog for hours till our dog was covered in S***T. Husband spouted racist crap and my kids laughed at him. Had to wash our dog in the kitchen after he left. Friend divorced now.
OMG, what a mental image. WTF is wrong with some people?
We had a house sitter once who wanted to bring their own dog for the week. They assured us the dog was well behaved and house trained. This was a pretty close friend, and their house is nice and clean, so we believed them. Came home to find every rug in our house destroyed. The house smelled funky when we walked in, and I immediately found wet spots on our living room rug. Lifted it up and it had more stained areas than not. Same with the kitchen, hallway, bedroom, and guest room rugs. I'm guessing this dog didn't pee outside a single time it was there. This was someone we paid to watch our house. Edit, to answer some common questions. Their house was all hardwood and had a dog door. I guess the dog just let itself out? Or maybe it does pee inside and they clean it up? Maybe the dog was freaked out in a new place? I honestly have no idea. I didn't confront them. We had a lot going on at that point in our lives, and just felt it was best to silently sever the relationship and learn an expensive lesson. We were planning a cross-state move and a wedding. All out small rugs went through the wash. The living room rug went right into the dumpster, it was so bad. We tried to clean the bid office rug, but it ended up trashed too. We replaced the living room rug fairly cheaply. They tried to blame it on my dog and kind of acted like they hadn't noticed. Which I do not for 1 second believe either part of. My dog has had 2 accidents since we got her 6 years ago. Once the first day, and once when she was recovering from anesthesia. She has a bladder of steel and weighs 15 pounds. This other dog was a solidly 75-pound lab mix. Based on the sizes of the stains, it was not the 15-pounder. Weirdly, there was no evidence of poop in the house. So I really don't know what was going on. No, it does not appear that they made any attempt to clean up the mess. The rug downstairs was literally dripping wet. We paid via Venmo before we got home. Yes, I'm a spineless wimp. No major justice boner to be found here.
Greater than they assured us the dog was well behaved and *house trained, which they apparently thought meant trained to pee in the house.
They peed in my fridge.
I reconnected with a friend who was moving back to town. There was a live outdoor music event going on that evening and invited her over before my friends and I went to the event. She asked if I could pick her up. Once she was at my house, we were all having a few drinks, she disappears. I find her in the kitchen, she literally has everything out of my fridge and is cooking. When I say everything, I had just gone to the store and gotten fresh veggies, chicken breasts, ground beef. I was stocked up for a week or 2. I ask her what she's doing and she tells me that she's been a chef at some fancy restaurant for a while and wants to cook dinner for everyone. At this point, WTF, but although I'm pissed the food is already being cooked, so I might as well get a meal of it then deal with everything. Cue a few moments later when she gashes her finger open with a knife. Blood everywhere, including all over the food on the stove. Once I get her finger wrapped up, she asks me, and I quote, "Do you have a sewing kit?" "I'll fix this right up." No is the obvious answer to that. I notice that she has gotten some blood on her dress and mention that to her. She asks me to take her home so she can change before we leave. Immediate yes. As I'm driving her across town, she calls her mum and chews the poor woman out, yelling at her to get a bucket of water and baking soda ready to soak the dress. We finally get to her house and she could sense what I was thinking. She asks if I'd wait for her to change and she'd only be a moment. The second she shuts the door to my truck, I pull off. She then jumps on my hood and starts screaming about 2 tall boy Bud Lights that she left at my house and that I'm a thief. I finally get her off the hood of the truck and simply tell her she's not invited. She destroyed all my food for over a week, and I never wanted to talk with her again. Quick edit: the food she was cooking looked and smelled terrible. She was not a chef, she was not a good cook. I ended up cleaning up when I got home, and whatever she was making was going to be uneatable, just a cross mix of chicken, beef, and every spice from my cupboard. Think 10-year kid unattended in the kitchen, making dinner.
I lived in a 2-unit house, and we were the back unit that connected to a shared garage. Garage was used for nothing other than laundry and storage, and a previous tenant had left a mattress in it that no one ever bothered to move. One day I, then 20F, go into the garage, and nearly jump out of my skin upon seeing some man sleeping on the mattress. I freak out and flee back to my unit just in time for 2 of my male housemates to come home. They go to confront the guy and come back to tell me that he was friends with our other male housemate, and said housemate told him that he could crash in the garage as he was in between leases for a few days, without bothering to inform the rest of us. Despite this DK move by my roommate, I offered to let the guy to sleep on my living room couch instead of some sketchy mattress in the crummy garage. A few days turned into a few weeks, months. I, the administrator of our utilities and rent payments, demanded that he chip in at this point. He agreed, but I was moving out soon because I finished a term early. The couch and Wi-Fi router were mine, and I was leaving them behind to pick up at the end of the year as a favor to my housemates. He shorted me a few $100s, a large sum to a broke college kid, after I left. Another housemate ended up having to pay for this guest because I was about to go reclaim my couch and router if I didn't get my money. A year later, the guest had the audacity to text me to ask if he could take me out the next time I came into town. Yuck.
A guest took a dozen eggs from my pantry and cooked it and served it to her kid after refusing to allow the kid to eat a dish I cooked for them. I think I had an older post about it somewhere here in Reddit about it.
She cooked a full dozen eggs for one kid. My GF was pregnant and we were taking a little vacation. We let 2 friends who are brothers use our house while we were gone on the condition that they maintained the yard and garden. First they borrowed the truck, which wasn't a big deal, but they immediately wrecked it, driving head-on into a garbage truck. Then our very best friend stopped by to borrow something and they told her to F off. They found some hidden cash, maybe $100, and stole it. They broke plates. We came home to find a pile of soaking wet towels and linens which had grown mold, and they all had to be replaced. Believe it or not, they did make an attempt to mow the lawn but somehow broke the lawnmower and then never fixed it or mowed or watered anything, and many flowers were dead. I had been collecting exotic varieties of heliconia there on the big island of Hawaii, and they were all dead. Some of those flowers were worth $80 or $100. So we come home from vacation and the boys have vanished without a trace and won't ever answer our calls again. We are 5 months pregnant with no vehicle and a trashed house. I think the worst part was that we really did think of them as friends, but then they ghosted us like that. Like we were disposable and our pregnancy and our lives didn't matter.
Press charges or take them to small claims court. This is bullpoo. Your friendship with them is already in the toilet, might as well flush.
This is kind of a house guest, house watcher story. Does that count? I went on a week-long trip up the East Coast when I was younger with my BF at the time. Tuesday to Tuesday trip. I had my friend staying with us because they fell on some hard times. It was around a month and everything was going great, so we decided to ask them to watch the house for the week as we had 3 dogs. We pretty much told him to take the car, do whatever, have some alone time, get a little vacation from the very tragic event that happened in their life, and we would pay for their food as they did not have a job but just take care of the dogs. I'm sure you can sadly see where this is going. Well, we decided to get home one day early, and I'm not sure if it was a blessing or luck or just whatever. Got home, noticed the 330i I had purchased that month had sideswiped a yellow pole of some sort. So, naturally I'm fuming, come up and open the door to 3 randos on the couch, all smoking, in my rented townhouse. The hardwood floor had random spots all over it, some covered in towels, and there was now a baby doggy gate up blocking all 3 dogs in the kitchen who were just almost screaming instead of barking at the excitement to see us. Immediately, I threw everyone out before even walking around farther in the house. Of course, the guest used this opportunity to get out with the people while I was not paying attention and running around in a frenzy. She must have had a bag packed like she was going to leave just before we came back anyways. When I say the house was destroyed, I mean it was disgusting. We came to find out that all of the spots on the hardwood floor in the living room entry area were dry, semi-dry spots of dog pee that weren't cleaned up and caused the floors to ripple up. Under the towels through the house were wet dog pee that was just left to dry on its own. I assume they were so angry with the dogs peeing in the house, that now the dogs were left and gated off in the kitchen for what looked like the entire weekend. Walking into the kitchen, the puddles of dog poop and pee were abundant. I had 2 full-size Dobermans and those things ate like horses and poo like them to the min pin. Well, you never even really noticed when she went to the bathroom, but still, not the point. The grout in the kitchen reeked of dog pee for months. There was so much of it that it flowed together in a huge pile, made a literal 6 feet long creek of dog piss where I guess the tile sloped, and leaked behind the stove and absorbed in the freaking drywall behind the stove. And the worst part, one of the Dobermans ended up with a ooty. We noticed it because within the puddles of pee in the kitchen, there were pink puddles. I freaking cried for hours holding my dogs. The cosmetic list just kept growing. But, I wasn't angry about my belongings, townhouse, but the utter neglect, and disrespect for my animals that depend on me, us, humans in general to take care of them. It disgusted me to my core. I felt their personalities shift a bit around anyone who ever came over. It was heartbreaking. My dogs were literally sleeping in their own poo and piss the entire weekend, at minimum. It was clear they were not taken care of at all, and I was never able to go on another trip without taking them because I was afraid they would be neglected and I would come home to them dead, no matter who watched them. I don't know if they ever ate or what. I can't honestly say they were ever let out. It was hands down the worst experience ever and one and only time I ever had a houseguest, someone watch my animals. She left some of her belongings and I threw every single thing she left away. It was never worth trying to get her to pay for anything because, well, she didn't have a job and I probably would have blacked out from sheer anger if we ever crossed paths again. Edit. Didn't expect this to get any comments really. I thought it would be lost in the feed. So this was actually my boyfriend at the time's sister. She was my friend for years before we dated, but I was trying to not say that in case they ever found my Reddit. But oh well, he defended her. They both said it was due to her mental health. He on paper paid for the dogs, so when I left I couldn't take them. I did not have to be in a room with her until I moved out a year after this incident and had to call and have an off-duty officer there, if that says anything. It was a mess. I still think about the dogs and worry about them 6 years later after leaving. They were amazing animals and I know they deserved so much better. I regret not fighting for them more, but oh geez, the whole situation was better for me to walk away from as a whole and just heal. It was a terrible and abusive relationship and I hated to leave them, but you know. I'm sure we've all been there before in some way or another. And yes, for the record, I do think she is a despicable excuse for a human. Friend came over and has a known foot odor problem. I've known this friend for more than 20 years. Every time he comes over, I tell him to take his boots off outside and leave them on the porch instead of taking them off inside and leaving them by the door. I just got a new deep freezer, the big chest kind with a flip-up lid, and he took his boots off and put them in my brand new empty freezer. Apparently he did this because he saw a post on Facebook about how foot odor is caused by bacteria and that if you freeze your shoes, it will kill all the bacteria, thus eliminating your foot odor problem. I opened my freezer and nearly died from the smell. Best part was, he took his boots out and for about 3 minutes, they didn't smell that bad anymore, so he was ecstatic. But not for long. As everyone knows, you pour a cold drink and within minutes you have condensation running down the side of your glass. Well, his boots were super cold and after about 3 or 4 minutes water vapor started condensing all over his boots. They were soaking wet inside and out and stunk even worse. He ended up throwing them away that day.
When our son was born, my mother-in-law came and stayed on our couch for 2 weeks to help. In the 2 weeks she was there, she did nothing to help. Dishes, laundry, feedings, nothing. And our poor son had real trouble feeding those first few months. We couldn't get him to eat well. And it didn't help that my mill was there the whole time, staring at us while the baby didn't eat. After 2 weeks, my father-in-law was going to join us, so my mill baked a pie for him. That's why I always said that if we had another one, I'd be on the doorstep with a shotgun until the baby was 6 months old. And #X200B. Edit. As this has blown up some, I'll add a few things. When my mill saw my wife for the first time after the baby, she said, "Wow, it looks like there's another baby in there." Also, my Phil wasn't there to meet his first grandchild because he had a prior commitment. It was a Vietnam veterans reunion. I wasn't bothered that he wanted to go to that, because I know how important that group is to vets. But this is your only daughter and your first grandchild and you can't skip it 1 year. But then again, if he'd been as helpful as his wife was, it was better that he was away.
Oh hey, this happened to me, too. Postpartum a couple days and baby in the NICU and I was cooking dinner for my mill. ETA, my mill is otherwise great, just kind of useless in this regard and not very proactive. She didn't demand, but she also didn't help much at all. It was a bad time. I felt like I never got to recover from a very traumatic birth and then I got hit with PPD, and by the way I have other kids who need attention and food and stuff. It was really hard to advocate for what I needed because I was exhausted and both children and adults needed things right now.
Not my experience, but my mom's. One of my dad's younger cousin moved into my parents' newlywed house to stay with them until he finds some other arrangements for him. My dad's a pushover and mom's an introvert. He ended up making my parents move out of their bedroom to other room as he needed it for his studies. That poss uncle had his friends over every other weekend. Even though my older brother was born, he did not move out. And then my dad's younger brother died, which gave him another reason to stay with them. Dad was living a soulless life for a few months after that. Then after 4 years I was born, and boy oh boy the baby me was a crier. According to my brother, if my uncle was even within 10 feet of me, I would cry. If I heard his voice, I would cry. Then he finally left the house, and has never been in our lives again. I guess I'm a blessing. Edit. IDK why you guys assumed I'm a male. Clearing it out, I'm female. Thank you.
Surely this is a joke? Your parents moved out of their bedroom loudly crying.
It may sound as a joke, but that's the truth. My parents married young, both were 20-yo. I have seen many people walk over my dad and a lot of his friends had duped him for money. My mom just wanted to be liked by her in-laws, still not a fan of her. My brother is somewhat same, he can't handle light jokes and takes them personally. I really think I'm adopted at this point, I am not like my folks. My, now ex, BFS friend took over our bedroom. I came home from work to find him on our bed with his dirty socks on our pillows as he was on his computer. Would constantly sit in between my BF and I, would eat on the couch or in our bed and leave crumbs. If I attempted to talk to my BF he would immediately interrupt me to say something. If we went to go out for anything he would invite himself along and take shotgun. Whether I was driving or BF was driving, would leave trash all over our car. The kicker though, bringing his girlfriend around who we found out later was a minor. He was 19, she was 15, not effing cool. I sometimes think the best part of the breakup was not dealing with him anymore.
It sounds like his bro had a crush on him.
He poo in the laundry hamper.
Not me, but my brother's partner requires that he go buy the ingredients for breakfast fresh every morning before he wakes up. As in, if he wants bacon and eggs, my brother needs to go buy fresh bacon and eggs from the store before he wakes up, then come home and cook them, again, preferably before he wakes up.
Sounds like a good start to an abusive relationship.
So my paternal aunt came to visit my father who was in hospital. She dropped off the bus with her husband, went to see him for an hour, then crashed at our home for a week and never went to see him again. Both of them, she and her husband, won't do anything to help me or my mum. My mum had to take care of everything, prepare food for them, then go visit my father, come back and cook again for them. Those bastards took over our living room and would spend all day watching television without interacting with others, leaving lights, fans on, doors open everywhere they go. Her husband used every item in bathroom and polluted everything, soap, razor, trimmer, and even used my toothbrush, not joking. After a week of free vacation, they demanded I drop them off at bus station. I was very sick myself at that time and we didn't own a car, so I had to drop them off one by one at the station on my bike. I had 104° Fahrenheit fever from stomach infection and that day was a hell for me. If I owned a car back then, I definitely would have to drop them off at their home 160 kilometers away, for free.
In my case I was a house guest and the hosts were the worst. I stayed in a home with 3 other girls while we did work for the church. While it was very generous of the host family to have us, they sold Amway and so we had to sit through a sales pitch one night. We slept in the basement on the floor which was carpeted but infested with fleas from their numerous dogs. One night for entertainment we made balls of dog hair and watched to see how many fleas hopped on it. When they were finished cooking a meal, they left any leftovers in the pan until the next meal and then they just heated them up. So last night's burger had been sitting on the stove for 24 hours, reheated and served again. Is that even a thing?
Those poor dogs. Jesus, how did they not keep them on a preventative? And WTF do they want to die of food poisoning?
I was 7 months pregnant with my second child. We hit a period of severe financial hardship, like eating buttered noodles every meal because that was all we could afford. I made sure my daughter ate properly, but I didn't. I saved for 2 months, seriously, and bought myself a $7 steak because I was seriously craving meat. I came home after work to cook that steak up, and my friend, who we let stay there for a week because she had nowhere to go, was eating it. She knew how poor we were. Her excuse: it is inhumane to make a grown adult eat nothing but buttered noodles. I grabbed her clothes, threw them outside, and told her to leave.
He F-ed my girl. Guess she wasn't a good guest either though.
My brother is a vagabond. He shows up at my house without calling ahead all the time. He unpacks his stuff which stinks, he stinks. He's a smoker and he is always by a campfire and doesn't shower. He makes my whole house smell. He also will either bring some puppies he got that definitely haven't had their shots or he will bring a good friend he just met that looks shady as can be. He is always here to borrow money, raid my fridge for booze and can't afford dinner. This is all under the guise of I just want to surprise you. In reality he knows if he calls ahead I'll say no.
Thank you for watching. We upload new videos every day, so be sure to come back for more fun. Please consider liking and subscribing if you enjoyed the video.